up, everybody? Welcome back to Keith and Mike Watch Deep Space Nine. Today we are talking about Season 2, Episode 15, Paradise. Mike, how you doing?
It is not paradise today, Keith. It's raining the dickens outside. It's cold as butt, and...
butt cold.
Butt cold. I want a quick reminder at the top. Keith and I are going to talk for like 20 minutes before we ever start talking about the episode proper. So if you
100%.
hate us and these shrill voices coming to you now in 5.1 Dolby Digital Surround, you don't have to listen to it. Below there are timestamps for every show we do, just so you know. Keith, I'm doing good. How are you, buddy?
Well, not as salty as you are this morning.
I gotta get the second cup in, baby.
I know, me too. Well, the little peek behind the curtain this morning. So our plan was to record at 11 in the morning, which is early for us, but Mike's got a show he's got going on, and so at about little after 10, Mike's like, "Hey, I want to go do all this other stuff. Let's go at 12." And I'm like, "Okay, great." I had a plan to be ready at 11. I was going to eat some breakfast, take a shower, do a little email or whatever. So, I get the 10:10 wave off. So I'm like, "Okay, great." Relax, start doing some work. I don't shower. I don't start eating. And then at like 10:31, Mike's like, "Let's do it now."
I mean, I'm not sure that was my inferred tone, but...
So... all of a sudden, now I'm unprepared. We're actually starting at the regular time, but I'm all fakakta because
Keith, I was going to go to the gym, but then I went to pee and I looked in the mirror and I was like, "What's the goddamn point? Let's just do the show."
I'm perfect already.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, "You look good."
I believe the text was, "I'll lift later." Bro, do you lift?
I do, man. 2-3 times a week.
Oh my god!
Wow, you can't fill out this medium T-shirt.
Wow.
I literally walk into my little apartment complex gym hoping all the machines are taken up so I can be like, "Oh, well, I tried,"
Yes. Well, the reason I bought a house is because there's no gym in it.
Yeah, there you go. Keith, excited to talk about this episode. Watched it with the patrons last night and had some severe deja vu.
Really?
It gave me all kinds of vibes of that episode with Kira. Remember where she goes to the moon to like kick off that old man, and he's like, "I'm not going. Let's make some stew." And then we talked, and then they like made a fire, and then that was the end.
Yeah,
that's what it reminded me of. I feel like they used the same set too.
Well, Griffith's Park. Well, I know actually because the Kira episode, Progress, that was shot on a soundstage.
Oh.
And you know what? Their primary set probably was too, but they spend most of the time in Griffith Park. But
yeah, and I still don't quite know how I feel about it, which is never particularly a great sign. Here we go. We'll find out today.
We're going to talk about it, and we're going to talk about all of it. But before we do, Mike, who watched with you yesterday?
Keith, you can always watch every episode along with me on our Patreon page with these fine folks. They are the patrons. Brian Kaufman, Casey Clark, Cloud Lover 69. You're still paying, bro. Jason Moe, Andrew Hayes, Jorge Navoa, and the mysterious.
You're still paying, bro.
The mysterious Anne. Worf's Boot Shivs. Charles did ask for us to take his name. He does not want his real name underneath Worf's Boot Shivs. He doesn't want people to know it's him, Keith.
Oh, I didn't get that.
So if you're a patron and you ask us something, we'll do it a couple months later. CRM Productions, Charles, that's basically the whole vibe of our patron.
Well, only Mike gets the notifications on the patrons, and he could notify me.
Yeah, I just assume you do nothing else but sit and wait for emails.
I don't even get notifications.
At Grim. Oh, it's going to be a doozy today, folks.
Oh,
at
my God.
Grim_toys. Delusions at noon. And our newest patron, Eric Wilson. Yeah, I hope it's worth it, buddy. I'll
tell you what is worth it. I posted just this week the book 1 of Star Trek Restoration, the spec screenplay turned graphic novel that I wrote. It's a graphic novel with no graphics. It's just laid out like one.
For that alone, you should look at it because like there's a spec image at the top that Keith puts like 7 disclaimers on. It's like, this isn't mine. This is just for the vibes. And then you start to read an actual comic with like comic font and the tiles. It's like fully there, but there are just 0 pictures. It's like
just 0 pictures. But Mike, you shouldn't read it. It's full of spoilers.
Trust me, I did not.
I thought it was safe without doing that disclaimer because I knew for full well you weren't going to read it.
But that's not all you get. Keith and I throw stuff up there all the time, but also we watch some episodes. Well, we've watched 1 episode of The Next Generation. We're going to get back to that. We watched 2 episodes of the Star Trek the Animated Series, which are very loose and fun episodes. Check those out. And
As opposed to our tight ones?
Yeah, right. We do some unboxings. We've got some fun stuff in store moving into the new year when Keith and I really just shed the rest of the friend we have and just do this all the time. So welcome 2023. Join us, patreon.com/K and M.
Yes, indeed. All right. Well, before I'm not going to jump into a commentary about what it's like to still be in the city at 40. Because there's nobody left. Everybody else left. But we're not going to do that. Yeah, that's exactly how I feel today. However, we are going to talk about Deep Space Nine, Season 2, Episode 15, Paradise, which aired on February 13th, 1994, the cold season of 94.
February 14th?
13th.
Oh. Not quite 13th. Valentine's Day.
It wasn't quite Valentine's Day, which would have made no difference to 14-year-old Keith.
Yeah, I'm with you.
It's that's a pattern that continued for most of my life. The top song, I'm excited to hear it because I know Mike's got the pipes to do a little Celine because we were listening to "The Power of Love," Celine Dion.
Oh man, I thought I actually remembered.
Dead air.
Celine, that was one of the 2 CDs my dad had. My dad had bought a new Cadillac car, okay? And it had a newfangled CD player in it, Keith.
Ooh,
and he had 3 CDs that I recall. Mm-hmm. Some Garth Brooks thing.
Yanni at the Acropolis.
No. He had Garth Brooks. He had John Cicada's first CD.
Wow.
Which was a banger, and he had Celine Dion with "The Power of Love." But I just don't have it in me to make any parody lyrics today, Keith.
Boy, that is
But I hit my chest really hard, and this is how hard I lift, bro. I just injured myself. I did a Celine punch, and I might bruise.
Wait, you were able to get all the way through that wall of muscle you've built up? I thought you'd be impenetrable.
Oh, well. Oh, man, I just nixed 6 jokes I was going to do. Okay. Keith, would you like to know what else was jamming? Oh, wait, tell us the movie first.
After I tell you the top movie, which continued to be Ace Ventura, Pet Detective.
Oh, yeah. We love you, Ace.
Eek.
Did not. Oh, somebody took last week when we made a joke about Ace Ventura, and I was like, well, at least Ace Ventura 2 was the clean one. We were kidding. No, it was also terrible.
No. It's yes. I don't think I've seen all of Ace Ventura Part 2 ever.
It's not great.
I don't care about stupid. I'm fine with stupid. Like the whole silliness and whatever the Jim Carrey, like the early Jim Carrey of, I don't care. I like, great, fine. I could be in the right mood for that. I just hated the transphobia. So
now, Keith, was it always Sundays this was airing?
It's usually Sundays that get listed on IMDb, but again, this was syndicated,
right?
So it aired whenever the syndicated station decided to air it. I think IMDb just had to call one, just call a date and make it.
Because what other days was? I think Saturdays too, right?
It was on Saturdays in my local area.
Okay, well, let's do a little thing here. So on Sunday, February 13th, 1994, Keith, we had some great stuff. We had a new show debuting on ABC that I don't remember, 8 p.m. in prime time, called Will You Marry Me? Which sounds like a precursor to the Bachelor days. Yeah, or any of the terrible genre of television that seemed to have spawned then, Will You Marry Me? And then on CBS, Keith, we were in the Winter Olympics.
Oh, no kidding.
The best Olympics, I guess. I mean, I just loved any Olympics. In fact, there were... this is pay-per-view, so my dad would get the pay-per-view, and you get 4 channels of Olympics, Keith.
Yes. So this, all right. So hold on. Let me just put this in the time frame. Was the Tonya Harding, Nancy Kerrigan Olympics, wasn't that 92?
I think.
And then, because they had the Olympics together every 4 years, the summer and winter. And I think this was the time that we split it. So it was 2-2-2.
No, this is it. This is 7 weeks before the 1994 Winter Olympics is when the thing happened. She was clubbed, but then she makes a triumphant return, and Nancy Kerrigan goes on to win the silver medal, if I recall.
Oh, I know the story well. I was right, because I folks, you might not know, I love figure skating. I'm a figure skating
too.
dude.
I really have always loved, and we would put our socks on the kitchen floor, and we'd like figure skate around. So, and it was competing against the NBA All-Star Game, Keith, on NBC. That's quite the. And of course, we had your Martin on Fox and Living Single, Married with Children. And the George Carlin show. I forgot all about that. But that Saturday, Keith, if that's when it was playing for you, you had the Winter Olympics opening ceremony. It was coming from Lillehammer. We were there.
Yes. Oksana Bayul won the gold.
This reminds me, makes my heart Saturdays. So there was like a thing I used to do. Sorry, that struck me. My dad and I would spend every Saturday together, Saturday evening, because he worked his ass off all week. Didn't see him a lot, and then he'd be home the weekends, and we would order pizza from Domino's, and we would watch Cops. We got a full hour of Cops starting at 8.
Cops.
Then we would watch America's Most Wanted, which we loved, together, and that was usually our Saturday nights. So that's what was on TV.
Well, there it is. We also got Domino's every Saturday night at my grandparents' house.
My dad would tell them that he was allergic to mushrooms, so that they didn't even let mushrooms sniff around the pizza, even though he wasn't allergic.
No, I feel 100% behind him on that. Like I feel I've never felt more connected to your father. So there it is. Okay, so that's what was going on your television. What do you say we take a look at the hard news? If I load it correctly, because I didn't load it, but I think I have it ready to go. Yes, I do, because, folks, a woman, a Cyclops mom, has one eye in the middle of her face. She's a pretty housewife. She's happily married and has an 8-year-old son. There is our Cyclops showing some really, really excellent 1994 Photoshop going on there.
That's funny,
and it's not great, but that's really an impressive thing to look at.
Man, they didn't even really try. They just got the smudge tool and were like, that's it.
That was a big deal for them. I mean, but think 1994. I was doing
MS Paint still.
Well, MS Paint for sure. I don't even know if they did it digitally, honestly, because I had Adobe. I had like the
Corel. Did you ever have Corel Draw?
I had Corel Draw at some point. My brother did the Corel animation. So he did some very early animation stuff. That was pretty cool. And Photo Deluxe, Adobe Photo Deluxe is what I had in high school, which is the precursor. So I did some of that work then. It wasn't good. Anyway, let's talk about this poor episode. And this episode was directed by Corey Allen, who last directed Captive Pursuit all the way back in season 1. It has a teleplay by Jeff King. This was Jeff's only Trek, and Richard Manning, who this is his only Deep Space Nine, but did 13 episodes of The Next Generation, and Hans Beimler, who this is the first of 26 episodes of Deep Space Nine he wrote on, including some absolute legends. This is not one of them. It has a story by Jim Trombetta, who last wrote on The Alternate, and James Crocker, who wrote on Melora.
Everybody loves a rusty trombetta, Keith.
So, pro tip, if you're thinking, is this going to be a great episode? If there are 5 people writing on it, it's not guaranteed, but it's a warning sign. That's a warning sign. But it doesn't mean that you are free from everybody's favorite segment, Trivial Trivia. Now, Keith, waste your time with Trivial Trivia. Yep. Oh. Boop, boop. Thank you. So this episode, Trombetta based the idea of this episode on the anti-technology philosophy of the Khmer Rouge in Southeast Asia. Next up, O'Brien mentions the Rutledge, which, Mike, you know the Rutledge because it was heavily featured on The Wounded, the Next Generation episode. So we get more of O'Brien's backstory from the war, which it would have been the second episode in a row with a reference to that when he was going to sing the song that he wasn't able to sing because of a problem. The registry number of Alex's grounded ship is BDR 529. Mike, do you know what that is?
Somebody's license plate?
That is the license plate of the Blues Brothers Bluesmobile.
That's
from the Blues Brothers movie.
Easter egg.
Easter egg indeed. Michael Piller, showrunner, was interested in the idea of a cult because he had a family member who was involved in one. So this ended up being quite personal for him. And lastly, and I, as a musician, I find this interesting. Composer Dennis McCarthy wrote music for the final speech, for Alex's final speech, Alexis, based on Martin Luther's Protestant music using old church harmonies, which I think is it's very smart. And if you listen to it carefully, it's 100% right. I mean, it's the old, old-timey voice leading and music theory I learned at school, and all good stuff. So, Mike, do you have any trivia from the book?
I do, Keith. I think we should just take a moment and respect. Let's see if there's any cookies in here that you didn't mention. Speaking of cookie, that sounds good, doesn't it?
I'd go for a cookie.
Yep. Paradise was a strong...
I have a giant bag of Cinnamon Toast Crunch, so...
You lift, bro?
I lift giant bags of Cinnamon Toast Crunch, bro.
Paradise was a strong Sisko show, says Ira Stephen Bear. It was our great escape, with Sisko being Steve McQueen, the cooler king, but not giving in. In terms of what people were doing, though, those people on the planet, the message of this always seemed a little unclear. Keith, I feel like we're going to agree with Bear there.
I think so, yeah.
Paradise was another episode that went through many writers' hands before it made it to the cameras. The core idea based on... you talked about that. I wanted to put these characters who have human ethics that are based on hardware into a situation where you take the hardware away and see what happens to those ethics, he says. If you have to fight a war and you have a phaser, you set the phaser on stun and knock the guy down. But suppose you only have a stick. Oh, okay. I don't really see that we explore that in any way, shape, or form.
That's in no way, shape, or form in the episode. But you can set stick to stun.
Despite the fact that the episode strayed a bit from his original vision, Trombetta is happy with the result. It's not a real action-packed thriller, he admits, but all of the philosophical ideas get expressed and enacted in a very good way, almost in the sense of an old-fashioned drama. That sounds like a guy trying to polish up his own turd, Keith.
Yes, indeed.
Curiously, it was the philosophy of the episode that seems to have caused the most problems for the on-staff writers. It was a show that worked well, but I don't know if we ever found it, reflects Bear. We went back and forth over whether these people were doing, whether what these people was doing was a positive or negative thing. Star Trek is such a tech show, and making these people anti-technology, it's almost like doing a negative show on Greenpeace. Wow, he didn't like it.
Yeah, I mean, God, I have so many thoughts.
Interestingly, this episode precursors my favorite album, OK Computer, by Radiohead, which is very anti-technology, but that didn't come out till 97. So maybe they drew some inspiration from this masterpiece, Keith. After the teleplay was completed, there was a question about how dark to make the portrayal of cult leader Alexis. Is that right?
Yeah, Alexis, yeah.
I'm a little bit of la 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 la, a little bit of Alexis, la 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 la.
I was waiting for that.
You were so excited.
There's a whole wind up to it too. You didn't even hear the whole jam. Where was I?
Should we get Mike a bigger soundboard for Christmas?
But it was well played by Gail Strickland. Gail and I worked very hard to make that character reasonable, recalls director Corey Allen, because her motives were right thinking. She had created a paradise. She needed to preserve it through discipline. We set out to let her be reasonable and caring human being, and she and I agreed that she was, but we were swimming upstream. It didn't come out that way, but I think that it is to Gail's credit that in making the effort, the character came out with more human traits. Then he talks about the music and the scoring with that you brought up. And then here's a fun tidbit. The scene in which O'Brien strips down to his shorts in order to set up the decoy with his uniform was filmed at Griffith Park Bird Sanctuary, which may constitute hazardous working conditions as there was an actual physical warning in the day's call sheet noting the potential presence of poison oak on the location. According to Baer, the mention of Jake's ever-increasing height was thrown into the script last minute to reflect what might be referred to as a technical necessity, as the actor's continuous growth over the course of the series. While admitting that any other child actor would have gotten taller as the series progressed, I don't know that any other child actor would be that much taller, man, laughs Baer.
Yeah, I mean, it's remarkable. By season 7, so thank you. Yeah, but I mean, by season 7, he was over 8 feet tall, so it was really quite something.
That wasn't good.
Okay, so what was The Next Generation doing? Interestingly, a little bit of an overlap here. It was an episode called Thine Own Self, in which Data's memory is wiped on a primitive planet, so he doesn't know who he is.
Okay.
Better episode than this one. But also interesting that we spent a lot of time probably in Griffith Park. They're probably shooting at the same time. All right, so the guest stars this episode include Juliana Nixon, who played Cassandra, who also played Lian Su on The Next Generation, Steve Vavinovich, who played Joseph, who also played a crewman on The Next Generation, Michael Buckman Silver as Vinod, Eric Weiss as Steven, and the aforementioned Gail Strickland as Alexis. Mike,
do we know Gail Strickland from The Practice, Keith?
I don't think so.
The name just, I thought maybe we, well, all right. Anyway, while we Google that.
Yeah, why don't we hop into the screening room? What do you say?
Sure, sounds good.
She did not do The Practice, but she did do David E. Kelley's Chicago Hope.
Okay.
A little bit later. I believe she was a theater actress. I think she was a New York folk.
Right. I stand corrected, as usual.
Started working in Dark Shadows in 1969.
Keith, do you know? Oh, man, I don't know if I want to put this on the internet, but I'm going to. My original name that was plotted out was based on Dark Shadows. My mom was obsessed with the soap opera Dark Shadows and wanted to name me Barnabas.
Barnabas?
I would have been Barnaby and Deglio. Luckily, go ahead.
I feel like we should make that canon, Barnabas.
Luckily, my grandmother, my mom's mom, was in the hospital room, and my mom pitched this idea, and my grandmother said, "That's stupid."
Shut that the hell down.
And the Life cereal commercial was playing. Mikey likes it. Mikey will eat anything. My grandma was like, let's call him Mikey. And that was it.
Wow.
That's the legend, Keith.
You got rescued by your grandmother.
Did. Sure did, Barney.
Barney. Well, that's all right. Well, I know that had I come out female, I would have been named Sarah.
All right.
Which I love the name Sarah.
Yeah, there couldn't be a more religious name for a more religious guy.
Sarah's not religious.
Sarah's very religious.
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well,
Google.
Whatever. I named a character in my book series Sarah, so it all worked out.
Did it?
All right.
Didn't work out for Sarah, did it?
Because you haven't read the books.
It doesn't work out for many people in those, but I skimmed.
See, great. This is friendship
I was
right
like, there's
here.
a lot of typos. I can't.
No, there's not. Oh my God.
I don't generally F with Keith so much, but today
I'm going to come over there and smack you. Good Lord. All right. What are we doing? Paradise.
Wait, didn't we have pictures we were going to look at, or are we going to do that later?
Well, you were supposed to put them up during Trivial Trivia.
Oh, it was supposed to it was during that?
Yeah, doesn't matter.
Okay.
If you go to Memory Alpha, you can see some of the behind
You could have
the
seen some of the
scenes
pictures we were just going to rip off and put on our own show.
What do you think we're doing? We're basically just spending 90 minutes reading Memory Alpha.
Get the hell out of here. We're doing it.
Okay, so in our teaser, there it is. There's some of the artwork that they did to design the the ship, the crashed ship, and you can see that was the size of the set they were working with. Yeah.
Well, it's pretty big. You can definitely tell when the first establishing shot. I'll have a screenshot, but you're like, they're not seeing anything else. That's all we're going to say. That is clearly the entirety of that set.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean,
we're not getting different locations. Yeah. All right. Let's do this. It's a single episode.
There are 26 episodes this one season. They couldn't build too many sets. All right. So in our teaser, Sisko and O'Brien are in the runabout surveying new star systems for colonization near the wormhole. Sisko has asked O'Brien to help train Jake in engineering in preparation for applying to Starfleet. We hear that, guess what? O'Brien was a late bloomer and only discovered engineering during the Cardassian War. That's how he got the gold engineering suit. Of course, when we first met him, he was an unnamed day player on Encounter at Farpoint and isn't red, but whatever. So O'Brien finds an M-class planet, but apparently there are humans there already. They hail the planet, but no answer. There's a duonetic field there that O'Brien spots right away. But our brilliant engineer doesn't think that that's going to be a problem. Spoiler alert, it's going to be. So they beam down to Griffith Park in LA and discover that their tricorders aren't working. Nor are their phasers or communicators. All of their electronics aren't working. Then they are accosted by literally Robin Hood. Like with the little green pantaloons and everything.
But no sleeves, at least.
No sleeves. Well, you got to... He lifts, bro.
You lift, bro? Should we call him Rambo Hood?
How long have you had that one locked up?
I was workshopping it last night with the patrons.
Show us those guns one more time, Mike. Yeah!
I got to lift heavy, bro.
I actually have a bow and arrow in my house.
It's my brother-in-law, Mark, who's like the antithesis of me. He's like just like a hunter, a conservationist. Like he's just like a different type of male. And he's got a hunting bow. And he was trying to have me, I don't even know, like when you pull it back and latch it or like, I don't know, string it or something like that. I don't know the terms, y'all. But I couldn't even, it was a crossbow. I'm sorry. It's a crossbow.
Okay.
I couldn't even latch it. I couldn't even set the bow. I don't even have the strength to set the goddamn bow.
Well, frequently they'll have a lever thingy to help you on a crossbow.
Not this kind. Not for like real men, I guess.
Or he was just pranking you.
Very possible. He also once waited in an outhouse for like 45 minutes until I had to go pee just so he could scream at me like a mountain lion so I would scream like a girl. Mission accomplished.
Great. Sounds great. It sounds like a really good relationship.
No, the first time like when I was courting my wife and we went hiking, we were, me and Mark, that's my brother-in-law, we got to the front of the pack and we were kind of like maybe a quarter mile ahead of the other people. But like I started dating his sister and like he's kind of a quiet guy anyway. And so there wasn't, Keith, it was like silence for like 90 minutes, just painful. And then finally, thank goodness, he just looks over at me. He looks over at me and he goes, I like those sneaks, man. He like broke the ice, said he liked my sneakers. And then we were like, okay, we're cool now. So that's Mark.
So it took him 90 minutes to come up with I like your sneakers. Yeah. And in 90 minutes, you, who talks incessantly for a living, couldn't come up with anything to say.
I didn't know what to say, man. I was trying to be respectful.
Wow. There it is. We've learned.
Speaking of hiking in the woods with your bros, here we go.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. We begin Act 1, and it turns out Robin Hood's friendly. And then his buddy discovers the Starfleet uniforms. They know Starfleet. And it turns out the settlers were on their way to another planet when they had to set down for repairs 10 years ago. And when they did, they found out that none of their electronics worked. so they were forced to stay, and they've been stuck here the whole time. When offered a chance to escape, they say, no, we're happy here. And because, Sisko offers them, like, we can get out of here. They arrive at a makeshift village. The guy's wife, Alexis, is the boss.
I'm a little bit. I'm a little bit. I'm a little bit. I'm a little bit of la 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 la. A little bit of Alexis. La 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 la.
You get one more. Time it well.
Okay. All right. Because I was going to say, get used to the drop in that beat, buddy. It's perfect, right? It's perfect.
So perfect.
Yeah.
I liked that show. She was cute.
So good.
Anyway, so they have lots of questions about fashion and soccer, about what's going on back at Earth. They laugh like it's funny, but it's not really.
It's not funny at all, but I have to say, like I've mentioned before, I love watching background actors do their thing, and this group of background actors is chef's kiss. In fact, if you go back to the beginning of this episode, you'll notice one of them prominently featured on Keith's console. He's my favorite. Shall we beam back, Keith, and take a quick peek?
I think we might need to.
Yeah, let's go back and look.
Back.
Oops, wait. Shut up. Let's just look next to the...
Oh, that guy.
The face he makes is genius.
Everybody make that face.
We're going back in. Okay.
Okay. So, where was I? Okay, so O'Brien wants to start working on the communications so we can get the heck out of there. But Alexis says it won't work. There's some sort of deposits in the water that blocks electronics. But she's like, we're awesome at not having technology.
Yeah, take your clothes off.
And they've rebuilt it. They've rebuilt a tech-free society. Yeah.
Look at AJ Slater, man.
It's
AC Slater. AJ Slater. It's his brother AJ. AJ Slater.
Yeah, that's canon now.
Yeah.
So when the fashion lady asks if they're going to leave when rescue comes, she says they're all going to have to make that decision. But she'll never leave. Alexis won't leave, but everyone gets to choose for themselves. But Alexis says, stick around. All you need to do is contribute a bit, and then you're welcome, which is really nice and reasonable. Mm-hmm. But we get the sense she expects them to be there maybe forever. So we head into Act 2. So that's all of Act 1. We just sort of have a meet and greet and then go to commercial. We're back on the station, and Kira and Dax discover that the Rio Grande isn't responding to their hails. And that's it. Then we head back to the planet, and Sisko is reading a book written by Alexis.
But I love that he's crisscross applesauce, baby.
He's chill, man. Yeah. It's so funny. Like, never has one's body been so relaxed and face not relaxed.
Yeah. It's also a very small book, but he really was able to get a lot of her information. And I guess...
Well, there's a whole series of books.
Oh, okay.
It's like, it's like me. I leave my books everywhere.
I've been up all night reading, Keith. The manifesto.
Uh-huh. I should have written a manifesto. Then maybe you'd read it. Then, So she left her books in all the guest rooms, and she's got a lot of opinions, including she thinks humans...
my love, my dog. That's what we needed here, was that scene.
My spark... Yes, of course, but that's a spark wheel. If you...
I know, but it's a close-up of the hands, Keith. You get the vibes. It's
a different type of sparks if you use that wheel. She thinks humans have lost touch with their true power. Then O'Brien's been looking for materials to rebuild their tech, but we found out they threw out all of the technology on their ship as junk. Also, the husband dude is using a spinning wheel, as we saw, on a very narrow platform about 10 feet off the ground, which does not seem safe whatsoever.
In this primitive culture, there's no worker safety, man.
Apparently. The technology of a railing was too much.
Keith, you keep dissenting. I'm going to stick you in the box.
I don't box me. So then he kicks off. So this is an interesting shot. And I'm curious what your opinion is on this from a production standpoint. Because he kicks off some rocks and dust with his foot. And it looks accidental. But then we match it in the opposing shot. And we see it rain down. And it there's no part of it in the... it's not part of the story. They don't make reference to it, but they decided to keep that take and go through the trouble of, shooting it in the opposing shot. So they had to like go back up there and rain the stuff down again. I'm curious, like, was that some sort of symbolism that was lost on me?
I don't think so. I would say it was probably some sort of production cover-up, like there was a sound that was screwed up, or they didn't get any, like,
that's possible.
Room noise, so they're like, well, let's just do some dirt falling and grab, who knows?
I'd ask Jim, but he will not remember.
He's too busy cashing residual checks.
No, I don't think so.
Really?
No, I think it was all by. I've never actually. I don't ask him like what he got, but he certainly doesn't get residuals
then
for the sounds.
Don't ask him on in for an interview, because I'll ask him.
Yeah, no, well, he won't come, so it's fine. Anyway, but Rock Kicker has definitely bought in on the philosophy. Then Fashion Lady comes and says that someone is sick.
So let's stick some kale on her hand?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well,
Okay.
it's L.A.
Yeah.
Kale's a superfood.
Mhm.
And says he's got
Antioxidants.
it's true. Got an infection from some insect. And they'd be able to cure her easily if they could get to the runabout. Just some antibiotics. That's all she really needs, but we don't have it.
Antibiotics? All we need is like a laser beam it, man.
Well, we don't. Well, it's an antibiotic laser beam. But O'Brien's got a plan to track down the Duonetic field. But Alexis is like, hard no.
Mm.
She wants them only to look for natural solutions. And she also asks him not to mention being rescued by Starfleet again. I don't want to get people's hopes up.
And take your clothes off.
And take your clothes off. I mean, I believe that's the first thing every cult leader says, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Are you hungry? What do you need?
Yeah.
Want some arm lettuce? How about a prostitute? What do you know? Take your clothes off.
Yeah. Arm lettuce and prostitutes. I mean, that's an episode title I'd watch.
I feel like we're nailing it. They don't need 5 writers. We just needed these 2.
Arm lettuce and prostitutes. All right. Well, yeah, she says give her to the She's taken a turn. And then we head into Act 3. So back on the station, Dax has found the Rio Grande. Apparently the Romulans spotted it, and it's been zooming off at warp, empty, far from the planet where they ended up. Nice of the Romulans to let them know and not just steal it. Very un-Romulan-like.
So she had to go turn off the duetic field, send up a signal to somebody to make the ship go cuckoo puffs, and then start the field up again?
Yes, which does beg some questions, right? Like, I get that she could turn off the duodetic field, but
like,
how...
who was she talking to?
Well, she wasn't talking to anybody. Like, I think the idea is that she was able to, like, hack the runabout and send it remotely to zoom off into the planet where it was supposed to crash.
But let's put a pin in it. Let's talk at wormholes.
Yeah, because, like, Starfleet security, that's a military weapon. If I was able to, like...
Not even before we get there, I have problems with it, but we'll get there.
Just like, let me just hack into that F-16 from my iPhone. I'm sure I can do it. I've renounced all technology for decades.
Let me just, like, type it into my kale here.
To my arm kale.
Yeah.
Okay, so later, Sisko and O'Brien are working in the fields with Robin Hood. We find out for the first time, Mike, did we know this yet? I don't remember if we knew this, that Sisko's father was a chef.
I don't remember hearing that.
Yeah, it's important, but I don't remember if we mentioned it before. Anyway, again, he uses the past tense about his father. And we are reminded that replicated food apparently sucks, which is a running thing in Star Trek, that replicated food is never as good as real food.
That tracks.
It totally tracks. And we find out that Alexis didn't let her son eat replicated food even before the crash. Clue?
Preparation, perhaps?
So Joseph and O'Brien chat about Keiko's forgotten botany career. Because, we kind of moved on from that after Next Gen. Then we see someone being released from a metal box in the field. Sisko is pissed. It's a punishment box. Apparently, the guy stole a candle and was stuck in there for 24 hours. Alexis calls it discipline, but Sisko calls it torture. But she's all like reasonable, like, hey, torture's effective. She's tough on crime, folks. Yeah, she's like Dick Cheney. So
I thought the most effective part of this scene was the actor portraying the punished guy. I thought that he walked the line of like, I'm indoctrinated in a cult and responding to the cult leader a certain way. And I agreed to these rules. I broke them. I accept my punishment. He walked that line really well. So we're not, even though it's completely hit you over the head and on the nose from the beginning, they at least made some efforts to obfuscate what was going on here.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, obviously there's a push-pull here in the writing where we're supposed to feel like she's at least half reasonable. Mm-hmm. As they said in the talking about the production of the episode, they failed miserably because she's a monster right from the very beginning, and it's in no way subtle.
As I want to look at her face in this screenshot, Keith, does she remind you of anybody who might have imprisoned me on a certain tour we did at once?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Moving on.
Or at least half of her.
Yeah.
Okay. So
that's on the internet.
But for nobody has any idea what we're talking about.
Yeah, but I've kept my lips zipped. So guess what? I'm putting an Easter egg. I don't care.
Nobody has any idea what we're talking about. I barely know what we're talking about.
Nobody knows what we're talking about anyway, ever. Come on.
That's fair. That's fair.
Oof.
So, yeah, no, looks like he's being birthed.
Yeah, get some clothes on this guy. He looks like that scene from Ace Ventura.
Exactly.
We tie it all together here, folks.
Wow,
full circle.
that is that tight podcasting. That's why you have a Patreon. So, Sisko pulls O'Brien aside and says, we need to contact the runabout.
We need to get the fuck out of here.
GTFO. So get to work on contacting
the humidity here is not
secretly.
doing you any favors in the hair department.
No, it is not. No, it is not. So you remember how like his like V was so tight last episode? Now it's just like, it's gone to hell. So later that night, the fashion lady walks in on Sisko washing. Alexis doesn't believe in doors, nor should any good cult leader.
No, my dad didn't.
That's true, but he did have an iron grate, however.
It's true. He was very Alexis in many ways.
Well, weren't all of ours. So she wants to oil his muscles. And he turns her down for reasons beyond understanding.
Let me tell you one thing.
Single.
Yo, Sisko lifts, bro.
He lifts, bro. I mean, look, dude is single. We don't. She seems willing.
Yeah, what's wrong, Ben? Me and Keith have talked about it, and here's what we think about your decision. That wasn't good.
Well,
that was bad.
He does, of course, realize that Alexis sent her, so we want to make sure that she was of her own choice. So he goes to confront her. He's pissed. She says, "You're displaying core behavior. He needs to get his statins checked."
A little stress test, never hurt nobody.
Yeah. But we find out that the fashion lady did want to get into that of her own accord. So missed opportunity, sir.
Ben.
Talk about my...
Yeah, but he's really only into the manifestations of multi-personality projections. That's really what he's into.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, indeed. So instead of running back to his bedroom immediately...
Oh my God! Cut to this scene. What if it was just cut to and like that cartoon sound effect that's like
it's just like
Gilligan's
floats
Island
off the air for a second, and
like
then
120 frames.
Yeah.
We're fucking children.
We really are. Oh goodness gracious! Where was I? He points out that Alexis has been preparing for a technology-free life long before they crashed. She says that she's turning back to ancient Earth religions to explain her good fortune. thus adding a religious fundamentalist overtone to this. She says that, you know what, maybe good hard work will turn him around.
And take your clothes off.
And take your clothes off and stand watch. Watch for what? There's nobody else on this planet.
Did you say watch or sentinel? I remember using the word sentinel, which I thought was a cool choice.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's okay. She might have. I don't remember. So in Act 4.
Also, great shot. I love when production sneaks in. Clear she's got a candle lit, but if you look behind that curtain, it's full daytime outside.
Well, you got to have some lights. You know, you got to see your way back to the...
It's clearly a nighttime shot, but you can... It's daytime.
There might be candles on both sides. You don't know.
Okay. It's daytime.
So the next morning, O'Brien says he hasn't been able to figure out what the duonetic field is, but he's pretty sure it's not naturally occurring. Alexis shows up and asks if, you know what, you've been working all night, but can you work your regular shift? And he's
eat
like,
this fucking pear too, buddy. Eat this pear.
Eat the pear. Eat the fruit. And the power struggle continues. We head back to the runabout, and Dax and Kira have caught up with the other runabout and try to figure out how to capture it while it's at warp.
Keith, I need you guys to make a subtle choice, please.
Mm-hmm.
Subtle choice. Oh,
yeah.
Okay, great. Let's go with that.
Yeah, well, he's doing Wednesday Addams. So they need to capture the other runabout while it's at warp, and they forget utterly that they're perfectly capable of remote controlling it. Literally 2 episodes ago.
No, we gotta do something really dangerous.
As was Alexis apparently able to remote control it.
Keith, we have to do a tractor lasso. Come on.
I know, but like if you can control it with arm lettuce, I'm sure you have an ability.
Keith, tractor lasso.
Okay, all right.
Somebody had a cool idea in the writer's room. We gotta get it in.
Okay, so Dax lassos it with a tractor beam, but not before she implies that she got into some, let's say, rope play with a member of the Hopi tribe back on Earth back in the day. I want to know more about that.
Crisscross applesauce, indeed.
Indeed. Then they add artificial tension about the risky move, but of course it works.
What if they just killed off both of them in that scene? Oops. I guess we shouldn't have done that.
Never reference it again. Or them. So we head back to the surface, and we find out that the girl died.
But after she said she's better, but then she's like,
she's like, she's doing better.
She's doing better.
So
that means she never was doing better. She just did that to imply that.
Or, I mean, people get a little bit better, a little bit worse, but
that's
like,
true.
unless
the kale was working, but then it rotted, and so then she died.
Yeah, so arm lettuce, not the cure to a bug bite. Yeah, you think about like, oh, Frontier, whatever, like, you die from really
You have died of dysentery.
Stuff. Yeah. So, and Alexis caught O'Brien trying to activate his devices, and she's pissed and cue the cult leader speech. So her solution to this is not to put O'Brien in the box, but to put Sisko in the hot box as punishment because he was the commanding officer. Avery Brooks does a very good exhausted, pissed eye twitch, which I certainly, like, if I'm super tired and super stressed, I do get the eye twitch, and he does that. I think it was really well done.
It's also a high sign of dehydration, which I think fits as well.
Oh, interesting. Well, there it is.
This is the best hold my hoe I've ever seen.
You rejected my hoe last night. All right, so
I brought my own.
So I wrote, Uncle Jim does excellent sound work, making metallic clank to what is a very clearly a plastic locking mechanism. And we begin Act 5. Back on the runabouts, they discover that all the memory banks have been erased. So not only with her arm lettuce was she able to fly the ship, she was able to erase the memory banks on the runabout, which is a military ship.
I offer a solution in a moment. I got to get to the screenshot, but then we'll talk.
We'll see. Can Mike fix it?
No, but I'll put forward a possible
You
solution.
will posit something?
Yes.
Okay.
Navigation scan 451, Keith. We know the exact scan.
We do. Yeah. So they
Which
discover...
you probably couldn't have seen in the original episode. I think this was
Probably
aided by
not.
AI upscale.
For sure. But they realize from this that they actually had attempted to destroy the ship but screwed up. And this is what gives them a pathway back to the planet because they're able to track the trajectory of the ship. So on the planet, Sisko gets out of the hot box and he is in rough shape. Alexis does more speechifying and she's really hung up on him losing the uniform.
Go ahead.
He wants
why
to
don't you go ahead and take off your shirt?
I'm a little bit. I'm a little bit. I'm a little bit. I'm a little bit of la 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 la. A little bit of Alexis. La 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 la.
Wow, folks.
I hurt my back.
What you're watching is a tiny version of Mike doing that. I have him full screen here. And Mike popping his little Philly hat. It's really something.
You know, Keith, I didn't know how this was going to go today, but I'm having one hell of a time.
God.
That wasn't good.
You know, I'm going to go see K-pop on Broadway tonight.
Oh, you better get those moves. Watch it back, Keith, when I post it tonight. Watch it back and get a...
I'll get the moves. Okay, get the body roll.
It hurts my back.
I mean, is it hard to do that rolling motion through all those muscles?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm gonna need the Theragun.
It's true. So Alexis does more speechifying, and she's really hung up on the uniform. I said that, and he can't have any water until he changes, gets out of those clothes. Obey me. Sisko instead stumbles outside in his uniform and walks himself back to the box. Big time power struggle happening here. Look, it looks better on screen than it does in screenshots, okay?
It was a great, I thought it was a great camera device to shoot from inside the box as he's stumbling.
Yeah. No, super cool. I mean, you know, and there's obviously plenty of like subtextual overtones to this whole thing, which are probably more powerful than they intended.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they intended to make a lot of parallels to American history and what those boxes were originally used for. But I feel like Avery Brooks certainly was. But yeah, it was that was always the part that stuck out to me about this episode was like the historical subtext of that, which is unintentional but very strong.
Well, it's also, you know, if we got into it, it's an really interesting, and the episode shies away from this, I think, but for me, what works is the juxtaposition of leadership by fear and discipline versus leadership by example and symbolism, which is what I think Sisko represents here.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's, you know, and again, that's where I think they lost their way with Alexis's character. If they were trying to make us feel that some part of this made sense, some part of this was reasonable, that she was, you know, that she was a reasonable person behaving in unreasonable ways, like we lost track of that because her, and this is, I don't know, I should talk about this at the end, but I think like from a writing standpoint, right? If you're going to have your bad guy be a good bad guy, they can't know that they're the bad guy. They have to think that they're the good guy, but that their logic has to make sense, even at least internally within what they're trying to achieve. And where she goes from like extreme, having an extreme belief taken to the furthest extent to cult leader, is the breakdown in the logic, being obsessed with the symbolism and not the thing. So she's obsessed with the uniform. She's obsessed with not letting people think about leaving, not with convincing him that this is a better way to live. And that, you know, here are the benefits of living this way. Here's why it's great. Here's why technology doesn't help you. Here's why technology... No, she's obsessed with the symbolism and power and control. So therefore, her own internal logic doesn't hold. So therefore, she can't be that half good, that gray figure that they were trying to write.
Well, also because you can't be. Well, and I guess you can make an argument for this, but it's hard to fully be 100% behind your convictions when you know that a huge portion of them, if not all of them, are based in a deceit.
Right.
You know what I mean? So,
right. And she's fundamentally hypocritical because she is using technology to her advantage and nobody else can. And if I were in the writer's room and they wanted to like, let's fix this and try to do what we what we intended to do, you have to make the internal logic. You have to make her less of a hypocrite. You have to make her her focus, the focus of her control has to be on the thing that she's advocating for, not on control itself. Anyway.
Or in that backstory where she talks about her preparation prior to coming, there needs to be like a reason, right? Like something she's running from, or a reason why she decided to eschew what seems like a very promising engineering career or scientific career. She's invented all this shit. To throw that away in order to come and establish this.
No, for sure. And like I might write her a tragic backstory where like technology killed her husband for some reason. Like she was really into it, and then there were consequences.
It seems like they're hedging towards we want to make her like we don't know. She's the worst kind of bad guy who believes her own ish. But they don't really do that. This is actually one of those cases where I would have liked less nuance and more just like make her a foaming at the mouth, frothing villain, because I think that's a better foil in this episode for our guys.
I think either way. I think I think they lost their way by not really picking a lane.
Yeah, sure,
and so therefore
you're right.
Neither one of them were effective.
Actually, I think you're correct.
So later, O'Brien is making sparks with rocks because that'll make the computer work. And
I think they just like thought it was a cool transition.
Look where. Well, I mean, you see this a lot in Star Trek where they're able to like fashion a force field out of like MacGyver, instead of making a paper clip and a wad of gum explode like a truck. They're like, oh, we're gonna make a force field out of this. But whatever. So Joseph shows up and O'Brien asks him for help. And he's like, I agree to be knocked out so O'Brien can leave without being spotted. He could have just pretended to be knocked out.
Look the other way? Like, why do you have to get your ass kicked? Even if it doesn't hurt, even if you can do like the whatever, the punch, the no pain punch, why don't you just like say, why don't we call it good?
Why don't we just say like, we just walk out and
scene
say
from
I didn't
top
walk
to
into
bottom
this room.
Is absolutely ridiculous. It is a nonsensical nothing. There's no logic, but we get the point. We need to go. We're going on an adventure with O'Brien.
He's got to go. He's got to find the duonetic field, and O'Brien has concocted a makeshift compass that will lead him to the source.
That totally doesn't look like a dick. Not at all like a dick.
I don't know what your dick looks like, but is it like some sort of a gourd?
Is your compass happy to see me?
This gave me the little the compass in the water, which is like a real thing. Gave me vibes of the Ewok adventure.
Yeah. Well, I was getting Ewok adventure from the establishing shot on the planet.
Oh, that first one scared me so much when I was little. So good. Anyway, TV movie Ewoks. If you haven't seen it, kids, if you're, not old like us, you should go see them. They're really interesting.
Man, they were like, get that compass, and somebody built that. Get it in every shot.
Wicked. So this compass is going to lead him to the source, and he finds, of course, an electronic device causing the field.
So Keith, here's it. Maybe it's not an electronic device only controlling the field. Perhaps it's an entire computer from which one could do all kinds of nefarious business, like remote controlling a runabout and...
No, for sure. And like, obviously she has her technology hidden away. If it's not this, she's got another computer somewhere that she's able to do that with. My question is, how does this civilian settler have the ability to remote control a Federation runabout?
Yeah, I'm with you. It's ridiculous. But a better question for me is...
there password?
No, it's Kale. Does AJ Slater, does he know about what she's up to, or is he just, she said defend the case or follow him? You know what I mean? Because I feel like I can tell by his shirt this guy doesn't keep a good secret.
Yeah, I think he's in on it.
Interesting.
I do. I think he's the only other one who knows what's going on. But it's not necessarily clear. But Robin Hood shoots an arrow at O'Brien, and the chase is on. O'Brien, of course, is able to outsmart him by putting up a dummy version of his uniform. We get to see him in his shorts. I mean, like, O'Brien's showing a lot of skin this season.
They love to throw him. That must be an inside thing. They love to put him in some
They
sort
know
of
what sells.
Yeah.
They know what sells. He outsmarts him and knocks him out. They return to the settlement, and O'Brien's like, I got a big gun, and it works, and I'm the captain now.
Speaking of big guns, AJ.
Woof! So Alexis explains that she got rid of the runabout, and she orchestrated the entire crash landing all those years ago. Fashion Lady is pissed. Alexis doubles down and gives a speech that basically says, "You're welcome, losers." Sisko reminds her that she let a bunch of people die, including that lady. The armless did not help. She says, look, casualties are part of it.
Yeah, I'd have let AJ die. I
would have let my son die, which is, pretty hardcore.
And you'd think Joseph would, be pissed for a second, but, no.
He's like, no, I'm good. Nah, we're all good. Everyone's like, we're all good.
And she's like, you could have had this.
I know. Oh,
you still can have this.
I see. I have regrets for poor Sisko. Yeah. So then Kira calls, and O'Brien offers them all a ride home. No.
This is it. The reveal. I mean, to be fair, if I just found out that the past 10 years I found out that I was sweating on this planet and could have been in my air conditioned space home, I'd probably make this face too.
Yeah, boy. There's a lot of faces. She's given a reasonable face, and everybody else is just crazy talk.
Well, Bruce Willis over there.
Bruce Willis. It's like, I've wandered onto the set. I'm at Paramount.
Two of these people made the same choice. The other two made very different choices.
Very strong other choices. Yeah. Yeah.
And this guy's auditioning for Game of Thrones.
Yeah, he's going to get murdered with that arrow. So O'Brien offers them all a ride home, but Joseph wants to stay. They're like, we like our cult. So then Sisko takes Alexis and Robin Hood back, leaving the rest with Joseph.
And then these two kids just stare at the prison?
Well, that was the thing. We leave with a shot of a little boy and a little girl staring at the hot box. I don't quite know what we're trying to say there.
Well, yeah, because the ending. Okay, I almost respect that bad guys. If I ever get caught, I am going to gladly accept my punishment, because that will show to my followers that I did what I thought was right. Right, that I stand by the sacrifices and everything I did. I'll accept the consequences, but I still believe it was right. Okay, you can sell me on that. But if the followers, Joseph's speech wasn't we condemn you and everything you did, take her away, because they didn't put up a fight that they were going to take her off to face consequences. But he's like, we're going to stay. This is a paradise. We've created a community. But there's no acknowledgement that you created a community based on lies and torture in some ways. I respect that you like the people you live with and you've created this home and you want to stay there. You could sell me that, but that's not what's communicated in the little monologue he has.
No, or the hypocrisy.
And then and then they go back to their business, and this shot gives me the impression that they're going to live by the same rules. They're going to continue the torture and this and that. So then what was the episode saying? Where there is no journey.
Well, I don't think they knew. I don't think they had any
Yeah.
idea what the episode was trying to say. But
Like I feel like this shot now, had they just gone off and they're all like smiling and they're like, or the kids go pick fruit, or maybe we see them throwing the box over a ledge or something, like they're going to stay in their community and move forward and progress. Cool, actually, maybe at least, but this is unsatisfying.
Well, I think that go one more further so we can see the kids there. I think maybe there's a couple things that I thought about with these kids. Some of the consequences of this sort of thing that happened is
Inbreeding?
Well, that too. But these kids have never known a life outside of their compound.
Yeah.
So all the rest of them have sort of an informed decision about whether to return to the regular world or stay in the cult. These kids don't have that choice. It's going to be made for them by their parents, but also they don't know a life other than it. And so they're staring at the future of the box, I guess.
I mean, I guess Joseph does give the implication that they're going to keep the fields down and they're going to establish communication. Or no, he says, I don't know if we're going to, right?
Right. They're going to decide, like, he's going to be the new cult leader, I guess.
Okay. Well,
yeah, I don't think they had any idea what they wanted to say. But it was an interesting setup. They just forgot to write an episode. Mm-hmm. Anyway, let us do our vocab quiz, Mike. And now it's time for Mike and Deglio's Star Trek Vocabulary Quiz. Mike, I need to know, what is a duonetic field?
Keith, that is a type of force field that apparently blocks out all electronic communication. So basically what they should be putting in Broadway theaters.
Except for none of the lights or microphones would work.
Good point. That could be a problem.
But yeah, okay. And your next one, it's related. Mike, what's an astatin deposit?
Keith, that's like some sort of vegetative poop that when put in the water could potentially cause a duonetic field.
Well played, sir. All right. Shall we come along home?
Keith, I thought you'd never ask.
AllamaEmmies, count to 4. AllamaEmmies, then one more. AllamaEmmies, it's AllamaEmmies time!
Okay, here we are, back in Quark's. Tip back your now very cold coffee, and let us discuss Paradise. So, Mike, we've already begun, but let's continue the wormholes in the plot.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's the one scientific wormhole, right, which we've already started to communicate about, and that's, forget the why, all right? We'll get it. Like, how did she invented this technology, so I buy that it can cease communication and block everything on the planet. But like, then how can she reverse that silently and break through, not just break through the security on the runabout, but like remote control it, send it into warp, and then cover your tracks?
Well, I think part one of that is easy, right? If she turns off the field blocking technology, they don't have any technology.
Yeah.
So there's nothing for anybody to notice.
Okay.
But I think the wormhole is how she was able to remotely pilot a runabout from her box.
Yeah. And then also like, whatever. Yes, that. It's that. I mean, they're pretty primitive in there. And as like, because O'Brien and those guys, they couldn't trace them at all. Although it did say they picked up human life forms. It did say that in the beginning.
Well, because in orbit, the field only affects the valley that they're in. Mm-hmm. It doesn't affect what's in orbit. So everything's working perfectly well until you get within the range of the field.
And then I guess the other wormhole for me is a plot wormhole, and it's a big one because it's like thematic. So I know he's reading her manifestos, but if she's created a technology that needs to be implemented in order to sequester a group of people from the evil of technology, the basic hypocrisy of that raises my wormhole question of like, what does she want exactly? Like what?
Well, I think that
I guess that's like saying, let's use a nuclear bomb to blow up all the nuclear bombs so there's no more nuclear bombs.
kind of.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think she wanted. I think based on her behavior and based on her, all of her internal hypocrisy and her willingness to use technology when it benefits her, I think her being anti-technology is a feint. I think the reality is
She wants control.
wanted to live in. She wanted to be in control of these people, and she wanted to live this sort of primitive lifestyle. And her justification for that was anti-technology, but it didn't hold. She didn't really believe it. It was just her justification to set up this lifestyle that she wanted to have.
A puritanical leader, bad guy, is actually a pretty cool idea. Like I kind
sure.
of want to know more about the pre-beat, right? Like, did she handpick these people for the expedition where they were going for, or was it kind of just like a collection that she could, you know, she knew she was bringing her son and Joseph, but like maybe didn't know the other people. I don't know.
I mean, I feel like she probably did because she planned for this well in advance.
Yeah.
Right. She was, she was obviously working on this for a long time. So why wouldn't she select a group of people who would be susceptible to this? But you know, honestly, I think thinking about it that way does fix a little bit of the internal logic wormhole, because her anti-technology thing was just a feint. She's just a classic cult leader who wanted to have that control, wanted to live this life, wanted to remove all the doors. You know what I mean? And so therefore, she's not being hypocritical to her own motivations if the anti-technology thing is a lie. If that's not really what her deal is. But of course, you know, from the standpoint of the episode, the intent of the episode, which clearly the intent was, you know, this is a perfectly logical, reasonable way to live, and maybe they've got a point, but that's not in any way, shape, or form what ended up on screen. I think because of this. So, yeah, I think those are my wormholes. Mike, what was your favorite moment?
I've got two, Keith. I'm going to sneak in. One is because, as I mentioned, and we talked about it, so I won't overdo it. I love extras. I love seeing them make choices, especially when they get full shot. And there was a lot of beats here for them to play. And there's pretty uniformly excellent, I thought, actually, the extras who made some bold choices, even in the face of some schlocky dialogue. And, of course, you get your one who's just like, there's nothing you do. He's in the center of the shot. So they're like, we got to use this. And I can't believe no one on set was like, do you have anything else? Like that was the
don't have anything else.
That was the best they had in their edit in their dailies. Two, you know, I was thinking during the episode, you know, my logic was different in the beginning than Sisko's. It was clear to me that he and O'Brien were going to try to uncover what was going on, and I always apt for. And this is how I play video games, too. I love a stealthy approach, right? I don't go in guns blazing. I like a stealthy approach. So I kept expecting Ben eventually to, and I thought it was after the hotbox, to do the costume change. Play along, buy some time, which I would have thought was good. And that's where we come up to a favorite moment. I think we learn a lot about Ben from his decision to be like, fuck no, I'm going to show these people that you can oppose this and you can be strong-willed and you don't have to bend, even though it may not be the most strategically advantageous choice to make. And also, despite his coolness, he can get a little hot-headed. You know, he can get a little combative, as he does. Also, he should have banged that lady, but that's neither here nor there. So yeah, those are my two favorite moments.
I think both of those, I think you're 100% right. I don't think I'd even necessarily clocked that. But yes, this episode really is about showing Sisko's internal integrity and the sacrifices he's willing to make to show the leadership of his integrity. And part of that is not playing along.
Also,
right, at whatever cost.
Listen, Deep Space Nine, all of you, top to bottom. If you're gonna beam down to a planet, before you do so, tell somebody where you're going. It's just classic teenager logic. Tell your parents where you're going to be.
Yeah.
Phone call
Just
first.
Throw a
That's it.
text. Also, super engineer O'Brien, you should know what a duonetic field does, right?
Yeah, Keith, that's why he was sparking off rocks.
Yeah, but like he knew about the field before they beamed down. And then was like, why doesn't my thing work?
Oh, that's a wormhole, actually. All right.
Yeah, it's a wormhole.
But what's your favorite moment, Keith?
My favorite moment is the production thing. My favorite moment is him knocking the rocks and the sand off of the platform. And it's just a little visual detail that if it was unintentional and then they decided to, keep it in and reshoot it from the other angle, I like that choice. You have a little happenstance, adds a little bit of detail and life to it and something visual to look at. That's cool. Good improvisation. If it was intentional, it's cool too for exactly the same reason. Because I don't think the episode had a lot of real strong moments. I just like that little production choice made there to make my eyeballs a little bit more interested.
All right.
So there it is. Let's hand out some self-stealing symbols.
It just didn't. Fundamentally, this episode didn't know what it was trying to say. And, we've read about it. We've talked about it. Clearly, there was a bunch of writers. They kept trying to, polish it up, and they couldn't. I think Ira said it best when she says, I don't think we found it. And that's that. I think a lot of times these rewrites, most of the time, these rewrites are happening as production's already started. So you can only fix certain things, and you try to adjust course, and sometimes you're just not nailing it. And they nail it, and they know it. And they know it. It's in the book.
They 100%
you know what I mean?
know.
It's not like a tidbit that leaked out. It's in the book. He said it in the interview.
Yeah.
So okay, I think the redeeming factors are that I think Ben. It's a good episode for Ben. I like some of the choices he makes. Not all the choices he makes, but he makes them. O'Brien is not shown in his strongest suit here, and there's just some.
He's shown in his birthday suit.
Yeah,
here.
there's some just batshit logic lapses. That whole scene in the cave where he's starting a fire and then he knocks a guy out for no reason, even though if Joseph plays it at the end, like he would have stood up for Alexis. There's not a lot of, nobody's motivations are particularly clear, even the big bad, which is not good. And worst of all, the ending seems to lead you to believe, sort of undoes everything, which is a unique type of ending for a Star Trek episode, which usually likes to use science fiction as fodder for hope rather than sort of a dark twist, which is what I felt at the end of this episode. I didn't like it, Keith. If we want to just we want to get down to it.
Yeah.
I would say that it verges on bad, in fact. And then all of the Dax and Kira stuff is just there's not even an interesting puzzle to solve for them to find.
Literally
them.
nobody else is even in the episode.
Yeah.
Bashir's not in the episode, Oda's not in the episode, Quark's not in the episode.
And then the science that they use to puzzle solve, it relies on a batshit lasso thing that makes zero sense and is unnecessary. And also, it relied on the bad guy making a mistake so that they could find them, instead of them coming up with a creative scientific solution to find the good guys. Yeah. Bad all along. Mike says 48 self-sealing stem bolts.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. This episode is... I have always hated this episode with a fiery passion when I was young. Right? I think older, I don't hate it as much because I found it so boring and so pointless and annoying. Everyone was annoying. All of that is still true. I think as an adult, I appreciate it a little bit more because I see some of the ideas they were trying to play with. So I give it a little bit of credit for if you pitch me, the 2-sentence pitch of this episode, I'm like, oh, okay, great. Yeah, you can totally make a great episode about that. The execution really lets them down. I think Avery Brooks does a really good job in this episode. Again, I feel like they have given him such bad material this season so far. It's like you have Avery Brooks, and the episodes where he is the star of it. It's this one, and it's Second Sight with the with like the the imaginary woman thing, and it's just like those are the showcase episodes you're going to give Sisko, your captain, your Avery Brooks. Like, come on, give him some better material. So I think in re-examining this as an adult, as opposed to like a bored teenager, it's a little bit better, but it's still not good. So I'm going to give it 51 self-sealing stem bolts. So we're pretty close on this one. So there it is. That is Paradise. Next up is the episode Shadow Play. So that one will be interesting to talk about. We spent some more time on a random planet. And so there it is. Thank you so much for watching. If you are listening to this on the podcast version, the audio only version, do us a favor, leave us a rating and review on whatever podcasting service you are watching this on. That really helps people find the audio version of this, which there are actually a fair amount of people listening to the audio version of this. So help others find this. Other than that, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/K&M. Get all sorts of fun bonus stuff. We'll be back on Saturday with another episode of Look at My Star Trek Toys. Also, check out K&M Geekly every Monday. And we'll be back here again on Wednesday with Deep Space Nine Shadow Play. Till then, this has been Keith and Mike. Watch Deep Space Nine. Thank you for watching K&M Entertainment. If you enjoyed our particular brand of nonsense, please like and subscribe. Or become one of our patrons at patreon.com/KNM.
I'm a little bit a la 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 la. A little bit Alexis. La